Hi guys, so today's video is going to be, as the title says, grade 6, and when I received my Asperger's diagnosis. I was in grade 6 when I received it, so it makes sense chronologically. However, before I jump into that, I actually missed something kind of important in the last video. I was actually moved to a different classroom for the last month of grade 5. Grade 5 where I live, the school year where I live is September to June. So basically for June of my grade 5 year, I was in a different classroom. And I often wonder if things would have gone differently if I'd been in this classroom the whole year. I don't know what prompted them to move me. I guess they knew I was miserable. Like, really, the only time I was happy was when there was a movie on. Because then the fluorescent lights were off and the kids weren't talking. Pretty much any other time I was not happy in that classroom. And somehow somebody picked up on, so I don't know. Nothing was ever said to me. They just walked in the room one day and said, "Emily, you're going to be in a different classroom." And they moved me to a classroom that was it was considered a 5-6 split, but it was very uneven. It was like 20 something grade 6s and maybe at the most half a dozen grade 5 kids. So they moved me into that room for the last month of the school year, and I remember being very happy. I think it helped that I came in and they didn't know me. My school was sort of moderately large, so it was normal to know the kids in your grade, but not know the rest of the grades at all. So when I went into this classroom, these grade 6s did not know me from a hole in the wall. They had no preconceived notion of me as the weird kid. I think they viewed me as someone who had special needs, someone they should be nice to. So there were no meaningful friendships or anything like that, but they were nice to me. I wasn't being teased. Um, so I was happy about that. And the teacher was very nice, a little bit of an oddball, but very nice person. And she maintained control of the classroom. I think it was a calm group of students as well. I think she lucked out in that respect. But whatever the case was, it was a much calmer classroom, and I was much happier in there. Um, and the reason I wonder if things would have gone differently was because when I started grade 6, it was sort of a continuation of grade 5. Even by grade 4, I was already the weird kid. By grade 5, I really cemented that reputation. So when I went into grade 6, they wanted nothing to do with me. I was the weird kid. There's something wrong with her. Don't play with her. So I went in with a bad reputation, and I don't think that helped anything. And I'm gonna elaborate more on my grade 6 year. I just want to mention a couple of notes for, I guess, sort of context. The class was smaller. In grade 5, they had us in 2 classes, like I mentioned before. In grade 6, they separated us back into 3 classes, like we had been in grade 4. But it was pretty much all the same kids. So they knew me, like I said, they knew me to be weird, to be different. So most of them just ignored me. A few of the girls paid attention to me. It's sort of like they wanted to be my helper. I think it was obvious to the other kids by then that I was different, because not only was my social emotional development really far behind, but I didn't look like an 11-year-old. I've always had a baby face. Plus I was very tiny. Ritalin is an appetite suppressant. I was on Ritalin, so I was very small for my age because I underate. I did not look like a preteen. I did not look like I could be. Most 11-year-old girls are at least starting puberty. Some are quite developed. Those are outliers. Most at least have some are starting to change. I look like a 7-year-old. I look different. So they treated me. They really realized, I think, by that point that I was different. So I wasn't so much teased. Like I said, I was ignored mostly, and some of the girls tried to help me. The boy who teased me was not in that room. The boy who threw my stuff behind the bookcase, and he was not in that class, so that helped. But I feel like I'm jumping around a bit here. I'm a little tired, so if I'm not making sense, let me know in the comments. But I wasn't happy with that. I wasn't happy with having helpers. I wanted to have friends. I still want the other kids to like me, and they were continuing to develop, and I was still like a small child. Here's my toy. Are we friends? So I didn't understand what they wanted from me. I was getting more and more confused and frustrated. So what would happen is I would act out either because I wanted the other kids to pay attention to me, or I could act out because I was bored. And then the teacher would try and discipline me. And this teacher, there's like almost a line. You must be this mean for me to listen to you. There was like a line almost. And she was a better disciplinarian than my previous couple teachers, but not quite mean enough for me to be scared of. So when I would act out from boredom or from being frustrated by the other kids, she would discipline me, and I would just get belligerent and oppositional and obstinate, and I acted badly because I didn't care. I had so many behavior issues um, that I was being, even in grade 5, there were already people telling me I was never going to finish high school. And when you hear something enough, you begin to believe it. My left eye's wandering off. It's a bit lazy. I'm sorry. Yeah, so when you hear something enough, you begin to believe it. So by grade 6, I believed it. I didn't care about schoolwork. Somehow I was getting A's at the beginning of the year. I guess it's sort of a continuation of grade 5. I was still doing my work enough, like I did in grade 5. But that went downhill. I ended that school year. Somehow I still had C's when I ended the school year, even though I was half-assing things. But yeah, so anyway, the teacher would try to discipline me, and I would get all defiant and act out, and because I didn't care. I was told I wasn't going to be successful, so why should I try? Why should I listen to the teacher? I might as well do whatever the heck I want. And this is where I use the expression drop the ball a lot in the previous video. This is where they started dropping the ball. I mentioned, being suspended a few times in grade 5, maybe even once in grade 4. Grade 6, they really ramped up the suspensions, and I already talked about how that didn't do anything. I liked staying home from school. I hated school. What they also did in grade 6 is if I was having an outburst, is they would send me home. Um, my mom knew somewhat what was going on, but they didn't tell her much. So they would be like calling the principal to the classroom to deal with my outbursts, and their response would be, "Okay, go home." So I learned literally the middle of the school day. They told me, get your coat, pack your bag, walk home. I was walking distance from the school. So I learned that if I didn't want to be at school that day, I throw a tantrum and I keep ramping it up as much as I need to. Eventually I'll get sent home. And I feel like I have no way to prove this, but I feel like if I had been in that split class for all of grade 5 and then gone into grade 6, and those kids hadn't seen me for a year, and that my reputation maybe as a weird kid would have been so cemented, maybe they would have been, a little nicer to me, not necessarily accept me as a friend. Maybe they would have been nicer to me. Maybe there would have been, less acting out. But I can't prove that. So I don't obsess on it. I really can't prove that. And things went the way they went. So back to that cycle, she would discipline me, and I would act out, get sent home. And I do not for the life of me understand what the school thought they were solving by just sending me home whenever I acted out. They just taught me I get to, they taught me, like I said, throw a tantrum, go home, yay. I don't understand what the school was thinking with that at all. And I don't understand why they weren't communicating things with my mom, why there was never an attempt to figure out why I was so miserable. The one that really gets me to this day was one time when they were sending me home for whatever. I was in the office running around telling people I was miserable. I was truly miserable and depressed. And I was telling people if they sent me out of the building, I was going to jump in front of a car. Nobody did anything. They ignored me and told me to go home. My mom should have been notified. Possibly I should have gone to the hospital. My mom should have been notified. Nobody did anything. They just sent me home. What if I had done something? I was legitimately depressed. Thankfully, my mom noticed, and I saw a pediatric psychiatrist who put me on antidepressants, which I'm very thankful for. A lot of people have opinions about medicating children, and in my case, it was the right move. And I want to share this. Actually, I want people to know that it's not automatically a bad thing. A 10-year-old, 11-year-old child should not be so depressed. that they sitting in a corner crying for an hour. I need parents to know that this is not a happy child, that you're helping your child with medication in some of these cases. So I'm extremely thankful that for my mom in that regard. I'll get back to my psychiatrist in 1 minute. The last thing I want to mention with the school in grade 6, I know I kind of glossed over it because I think you got the gist of it. I don't really need to give you a chronological list of events. You got the gist of it. That was the cycle. I would act out, and I ramped it up throughout the school year, and I stopped caring about my schoolwork as well. I'm surprised I was doing my work, but I was half-assing it, but if anything. Um, so yeah, I think you get the gist of that. The other thing I wanted to mention, though, our classroom was across from the school library, and sometimes when I was sent to the hallway for like a more minor behavior, instead of waiting for the teacher to come, I just wander into the library. Sometimes I'd be in there for an hour. And I do not know why the librarian didn't say anything, why my teacher wasn't doing anything. I don't know what anybody was thinking. And if you're thinking that the librarian maybe didn't see me, I can tell you she did, because one time she was reading to a group of kindergartners, and one of them had to go to the bathroom, and they weren't allowed in the hallway by themselves. I think grade 1 and up. Kindergartners were not allowed. So she asked me to take this kindergartner to the bathroom. So clearly she knew I was in there. So I don't understand why they allowed us students to just wander around like that. I don't understand my school, what they were thinking, what they were doing with me. It's an absolute mystery. And I'm going to end the video now. I'm going to talk about receiving my diagnosis of Asperger syndrome. I was in my grade 6 year of school. I might have just turned 13. My birthday's in March. Our school year ends in June. So I might have been 13. I don't remember exact dates when I got the diagnosis. What I remember, though, is I was seeing a pediatric psychiatrist, like I mentioned earlier. I'd been seeing her at least a year at that point, and she just randomly brought up Asperger syndrome in the middle of an appointment, and I confirmed that with my mom. I asked her, did she say anything to you, and Mom's like, no, she randomly brought it up, exactly like I'm saying. And I vividly remember her getting a piece of paper and writing on it autism spectrum disorder, and then writing out the terms as they existed at the time, classic autism, PDD-NOS, etc. I remember her writing this out and explaining to my mom that I was on the high functioning end of the autism spectrum, and she gave my mom a book to read. And reading the book, my mom said it was like they were describing my father. So she believes, and I agree, that my brother and I inherited our ASD from our father, but we're estranged, so we can't prove that. But whatever, I have it. Um, so yeah, so she brought this up, and I remember a few different emotions. My first one was shock, because my perception of autism at the time, I didn't know about the spectrum. I just knew my brother. He flaps his hands, walks on his toes, runs back and forth talking to himself. That was autism. So I remember walking out of the room going, I'm autistic? Over and over again. Because I couldn't believe it. I never in a million years expected to be told that. And there was also relief. There was also relief of, it's not my fault, totally anyway. It's not just, I could have controlled it, I could have tried harder. There was actually something going on that was impairing me. There was a lot of relief there. Unfortunately, I didn't have the right attitude about it. I could have had an attitude of, now I have an answer, let's work on getting better. Instead, my attitude was, I have an excuse now. I can do whatever I want, and this is my excuse. And I'm going to leave it there for now, and I will elaborate in the next video about where that attitude took me. So thank you.